It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
Rookie mistake people make early on is they sort of get the 1950s, 1960s Mad Men voice in their head, where they start to they think that they have to make it sound like an advertisement. And indeed, you will be astounded and it's like nobody actually talks that way, right? And so this is an ad. It's like if you're conversational, then they can become more comfortable with you. Now they can put their guard down a little bit and be more receptive to your messaging. So be conversational. You'll be way better. You'll do way better too.
Of all the skills required to become a successful entrepreneur, I think a skill that's it's not underrated. I think we all know that this is important, but I think we are very scared of it because it feels like it takes a certain level of expertise or a lot of education in order to get to that point where it's finally working. What am I talking about? I'm talking about copywriting. Not copywriting like, patents and intellectual property. I'm talking about copywriting the words that you choose to use on your page to help a person on the other end do something or make a decision or to open up their mind to something, right? Copywriting, the words you put on a sales page, in an email, the script that you're writing for your video. This is so important, and we're all very scared of it. I am too. But today we have an expert on, Stefan Georgi, who is somebody who's helped people earn over $1 billion in total with the words that he's written on their pages. Is here today to break it down and make it easy for us. And of course, I'm recording this intro after the interview. This may be one of the most helpful episodes for you if you are just getting started with business, but especially if you have a business and you're selling something, you have a sales page up, and it's just not quite hitting the mark yet. We're going to talk about a number of different things to help you take what you have and make it better and help you convert more. We also have an amazing free resource that Stefan offers here as well, which I'll talk about at the end. This is session 623 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Stefan Georgi, hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, he's still waiting for that Cybertruck, Pat Flynn.
Running a business means legal questions are inevitable. Is this contract or agreement solid? What can I do if a client won't pay me? Am I set up properly for taxes? Well, rather than trying to navigate all of this on your own or searching endlessly online, imagine having a law firm on your side without the high hourly rates. That's exactly what Legal Shield's small business plans offer. With Legal Shield, entrepreneurs get access to real legal support, contract reviews, collection letters, guidance on business formation, and even help handling IRS audits. Members can book consultations, upload documents through the app, and work with a provider law firm that understands small business laws in your state. You also get proactive help on tax and trademark questions so you can stay ahead of legal risks. And if a client delays payment, Legal Shield can send professional collection letters to help you recover what you're owed, all for a fraction of what traditional attorneys charge. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Upwork is your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving you time and keeping costs in check all in one place. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way that they staff key projects and initiatives by assessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, administration support, marketing, and more. And I've personally used them myself and can vouch for them. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Go there now. Stefan, welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pat. Glad to be here.
Now, I know you as a very prolific copywriter, and we're going to get into how one might get into copywriting, whether they hire somebody else in the future, what to look out for, or how to get started on their own to choose the right words to, make the biggest impact. But I'd love to know a little bit about your background. How did you get into becoming this well-known and renowned copywriter?
I did not plan on being a copywriter. It really started by chance. I was in 2011 working at an outdoor school in Marble Falls, Texas, which is essentially like an outdoor ed type of place. It's funny, a guy like a Harvard MBA, like an investment banker guy, basically bought his childhood summer camp after making some money, turned it into like a summer camp. Well, I kept it as a summer camp during the summer, and then during the winter, fall and spring, did like an outdoor ed school. So I went there as a instructor. I was making like $200 a week, living in a double wide trailer. I had a roommate, had other trailer mates, and it was actually one of the happiest times of my life because prior to that, I'd been a bit of an unguided missile. I'd done phone sales, door-to-door sales. I'd tried to get a job at Enterprise Rental Car 5 different times, and they would never hire me. It's a whole story there. Yeah, and so I thought that's what I was going to do. And then my dad ended up getting diagnosed with cancer in the May of 2011. I went back to San Diego, where I'm from, to kind of help him and help my mom and everything. He passed away in October of 2011. And in December of 2011, I went to Las Vegas to just blow off steam and whatever. And I was playing poker. I was in a poker room, and a girl walked into the room, and I saw her, and I joked to my poker table, "Oh, I hope she gets seated with us." Because if you've ever played at a casino poker, you don't get to pick your table. You go see a host. They sort of look at all the tables, try and keep them balanced, so they assign you to a table. But she ended up getting seated at the table, and somebody asked her what she did for a living. She said, "I'm a writer." I wanted to talk to her because I thought she was attractive. So I said, "Hey, what kind of a writer are you?" And she said, "I'm a copywriter." And I was like, "Wow, a copywriter. That's so cool." And I pulled out my iPhone 1 or whatever it was back then. And under the table, I Googled, "What's a copywriter?" Because I had no idea. But that was my very first introduction to copywriting. And I could obviously expand on the story from there.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you learned what copywriting, what did you think it was? Because I think a lot of people have that, we've heard of this word copywriting, but what did you think it was? And what is it actually based on your expertise now that you've learned?
I really didn't know when I Googled it. There's people think about copywriting with the COPYRIGHTING, like a legal copyright. And there's still people today who I talk to about copywriting, and I try to make that distinction. They're like, "Yeah, I get it. I have a friend who has a lot of documents or a lot of and I'm like, this is different." So copywriting is really writing ads. And then the type of copywriting that I do specifically is direct response copywriting, which is where you're writing ads where you want the prospective consumer to respond directly to the ad. And it could be to click the button and buy now. It could be to put in your email address and opt in. It could be to pick up the phone and call 1-800 whatever and place your order. Whatever it is, you want the prospective consumer or customer to respond to your advertising. That's direct response. And I marry that with something called emotional response, which we can get into in a bit as well. So it's really just writing ads, though, at the simplest level. And people actually pay really well for it. And it's kind of a superpower. Every business needs it. I'm sure some of the people listening today struggle with their ads. And it makes a huge difference between good ads and bad ads. I have a friend who is in the financial service, helps bookkeepers and accountants who are sort of freelancers to grow their business. And she does about $1 million a year. And I basically helped her with her landing page to increase the conversion's by like 808% recently. And it was really just because we changed the copy. So it's wild what can happen, right? That took her from, she was losing money trying to run Facebook ads and couldn't scale and grow, to where now she's making money with those same ads and can very quickly scale from 1 million to 5 million and beyond. So it's amazing for everyone listening, whether you want to be a copywriter or not. And then also, as a business owner, it can really help to move the needle for you. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think we all have an understanding that the words that we choose are really important, but I think that puts so much pressure on us that we sometimes freeze and we don't release that page, or we don't create the landing page, or we don't send that email because we just don't even know what to say. So let's start from the beginning. Like, how would a person who is maybe just getting started with business, or has a business but it's just not scaling, your client, but before they started working with you, for example, like, where do we even begin? Like, are there any exercises or research that we need to do to just like know what words to then say?
I think the biggest thing when you begin, obviously there are plenty of free resources, which sounds like a lame answer, but there are, like, there's YouTube videos, there's, so getting a basic understanding is really not that hard. It's just kind of spending time to research. But then really the best thing is, like, look at competitors in your space who are having success already, and then look at what their marketing and advertising materials look like, whether that's emails, Facebook ads, their website, their landing page, which can be a special page on the website, right, where you send customers to. Really, like, if you start studying that, and honestly, like, maybe you could get it transcribed on rev.com. If it's like a video, you could just sort of type up like a copy of it. And if you start looking at a lot of marketing material and collateral, and especially in your industry and for people who are doing well, you'll start to see patterns that are happening. And I think that's the biggest thing is you need to become like a detective a little bit and look at, okay, it's interesting. They're always kind of saying this stuff, there's a lot of curiosity in the beginning a lot of the time, or it's very emotional in the beginning. They're telling a story before they start to sell. And so really looking at these commonalities. Obviously, I can share some kind of stuff around how to write good copy on this episode as well, and I'm happy to. But yeah, first and foremost, looking at competitors and seeing what they're doing is actually a good place to start.
That makes a lot of sense. I know there were a lot of like old school marketers who would look at ads in newspapers and magazines and such to sort of like just understand how those things are structured. How formulaic is this? Is this like Mad Libs where you could literally just change the words out, or is there a little bit more to it than that?
It is pretty formulaic. It kind of, most ads, especially direct response oriented ads, kind of follow a pretty similar structure. So there's the lead or the opening, which is where you're really trying to call out your prospect's pain point as it relates to whatever your product is, and how your product should hopefully help them solve that pain point, right? So you're kind of calling out that pain point. You're promising them a solution. You're usually teasing that there's something unique about the solution you're going to give. Now, and again, usually you're not actually telling them about your product here. You're actually just telling them about a solution. Hey, in like the next few seconds, I'm going to share a breakthrough solution that can help you to XYZ in as little as 5 days from now, even if you don't have any experience, even if you don't have a lot of money to invest, whatever it is, right? So we're teasing it. Really, the opening of an ad is really just often an advertisement for the rest of the ad, which sounds funny, but it's true, right? Because people have very short attention spans. We're competing, there's the attention economy. We're competing for attention against not just other ads, but Netflix and Facebook and Instagram and push notifications and a million other things happening. So really those first few seconds need to really pull the prospect in. And the best way we do that is by connecting with them and making them feel understood. So that's what we kind of call it their pain point. And hey, maybe you're struggling from this and you feel like that you're frustrated because of X, Y, and Z. Well, again, teasing a solution, making it a little bit unique. Like, in fact, it's something you've heard of before. In fact, let's do weight loss, right? It has nothing to do with starvation diets or calorie in, calorie out or keto or intermittent fasting or anything else you've ever heard of before. It's not a supplement. And yet in the next, you could lose 3 pounds of stubborn belly fat in the next 7 days while having more energy, waking up feeling fresh and bushy-eyed, ready to take on the day. And you may even notice your skin starts to glow more too, right? So suddenly you're like, oh my God, so what is it, right? I'm curious because it's not these things. It's got to be something unique. And there's this promise happening. And then really just teasing them in curiosity. Curiosity and emotion in the lead is really where it goes. So you might be like, and that may seem hard to believe now. In fact, I felt the same way, especially when I was 225 pounds and my marriage ended after I caught my husband cheating on me, or I was 220 pounds and I nearly died after a heart attack that my doctor said was caused by my weight, made me collapse in front of my kid at her school or whatever. It was like, and so now, whoa, what's going on with that? There's an emotional like thing going on. And so you might think, okay, is this like an ad? People think about print ads, but I'm thinking more digital, but even so, that doesn't mean now you have to spend the next 2 hours telling the story. It could be like, because the next part, if that's the opening, is like the background where it's like, hey, my name is Stefan, and depending on how the ad goes, like I used to be like you, I used to struggle with this thing. Then I found the real reason why I was struggling, which I'll explain to you, and a unique solution. And then we get into the actual like product, what it is, we start to sell it. That's a very basic way. There's a little more nuance, but structurally it's really that opening little background story on yourself or your brand or the founder or the spokesperson, little explanation of why the prospect has been struggling not to solve their problem, and then how, there's a new solution that can solve it for them, and then the actual solution, and then telling them to buy. So hopefully that wasn't a fire hose for people. I know that was a lot. It is similar like that structure again and again, whether we're talking about a little Facebook ad, YouTube ad, an email, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like you can't just go out and say, buy my product. You have to have some sort of way to A, capture people's attention, B, relate to them in some way. Like you said, that's why you said like, hey, you're probably like me. And I use that a lot. I didn't even know I was doing that when I was doing it, but I think that's why a lot of people resonated with my brand, because I just shared what I was going through and the struggles that I was going through. And of course, people naturally want to know how you got on the other side of that. How did you get through that? The other thing I noticed when you were talking was a couple times you mentioned like within a certain number of days or within a certain time period. Is that important to think about, especially for capturing attention? Because you said, we are in the attention economy, and I think a lot of people worry that things are going to take too long or too overwhelming. Is that a strategy that works really well when trying to capture people's attention, is mentioning just, hey, this isn't going to take as long as you might think?
Yeah, generally, like specificity is important. And so that can be specificity around your product or a time frame where people can expect to see some kind of improvement, whatever it may be. Obviously, the faster and easier you can make it seem without lying or being unethical, the better, right? And it's sort of like sell people what they want, give them what they need, all that kind of stuff. So there are limits to that where if you're talking about weight loss, you can't say, hey, lose like 30 pounds in the next 20 days, right? There's sort of like FTC stuff, like same thing with like income. Hey, you're going to make $10,000 in the next month. You have to be careful, but as much as you can reasonably put in sort of like a time frame to at least start getting results, start getting momentum. Because that's the biggest thing it's not always about like the end, people need the end result. It's like they want to at least feel like they're moving towards something, and they want to feel like they have momentum and that they're accomplishing something.
The other thing I noticed that you mentioned was, and I talk about this a lot, and this is why I want to hone in on it, it's you literally call out the objections that they have, and you sort of like flip it, right? Even if you can't do this, or even if you've never done this before, it's something that's possible. How do you discover what those, like in your research when working with a client, for example, how do you go about discovering what those objections really are? Because I've learned that the more that you can nail kind of the story that a person's telling themselves as they're reading a sales page or an ad, and then you flip it on its head, the easier it is to sort of convert that person down the road. So how do you go about finding out what those objections really are?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've got a list of about like 21 research questions that I ask, but we don't need to go through all of them. And that's the thing that you can give your audience whenever it actually gives them the whole list, which is great.
Oh, that'd be super valuable. Thank you. What's like maybe one or two that we could talk about a little bit?
There's a good quote from Jim Quick, who's like a really smart guy and really some of your audience probably knows who he is.
He works with like Marvel and stuff. Yeah, right. I like Jim. He's cool.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude. He said, human beings are not logical, we're biological. So going back first and foremost to why we need to typically not talk about the product right away is we want to speak to the heart first and the brain second. If you look, they've done research on this where essentially if the part of your brain that's responsible for processing emotions is severely damaged, then you can't make decisions. Like literally, decisions are emotionally driven more than they're logically driven. So we need to like connect with our prospect emotionally first, and then get the heart so bought in that it then goes and uses logic to convince the brain that's a good idea. Right. So you're like, hey, look, brain, but now, so a mistake people make is they try to lead with stats all the time. And this is going to tie into research, but it's like, are you tired of like your dead end job and feeling like you don't have a path forward and you'd love to make a good income while also enjoying more freedom? Well, you're not alone. In fact, It's a survey said that 500,000 people in the state of Texas also feel the same way. And 1 in every 3 Americans, and people start going into stats that they found, but the prospect doesn't care about 1 in 3 Americans or 500,000 or 50 million, right? They care about them. So that's why we want to speak to them. And then research is how we do that. So like some of the questions I'll look at are, what are the prospects' hopes and dreams, victories and failures, things like that when it comes to trying to solve the problem that we're solving for. Also, what other products have they used and what was their experience like? What did they like and dislike? But really, we want their emotional relationship to both the problem and the solutions they've attempted. And the easiest place that I found, not just the easiest, but by far the best, is actually like forums. Because there's online forums for like everything, right? And so if you can search weight loss forum, golf forum, investing forum, real estate forum, everything you can imagine. And what you find is like there's these like forum threads where people tend to really overshare. So I first discovered this when like I was looking, our cat had like looks like an eye infection, and I Googled, whatever, like cat's eye, pink, like pink eye, and it was like a forum. But people would be telling these stories of like, well, I've got 2 cats. I've got Fluffy and Butterball, and Fluffy's a rascal and is 1 year old, and Butterball is 7. And it's like this, like, like a scroll of information about this person, their life. And at the very end, it's like, yeah, it's pink eye, right? But people like just have to share like so much stuff. And I was like, man, this is actually really interesting. So if you start searching for that stuff, like for whatever as it relates to whatever your market is and what you're selling, or by the way, even if you're you can do this for your clients, right? If you're trying to acquire clients, if you have a freelancing business or whatever it is, and you see them vetting their frustrations, what they hope for, all that, you can basically copy and paste that language from like the forums and then have like in a document. And then when you go to write, you can start using those lines and putting them into your copy. And not only does it make it easier to write the copy, but like they feel so understood, because it's like, oh my gosh, they're like, it's like they're speaking my soul. It's like I would say that exact same thing. How does he or she or they, like, how do they know that I'm going through this? And it's like you basically, because you spied on them, you did intel. I call it, it's kind of ethical appropriation, but it's really extremely powerful tactic.
Yes, the forums are great. Google searches for forums is really easy to do. Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, places like that, where I like how people do overshare on those platforms because they're with their people, right? And then you have other people who then come in and answer, who also share their story. And then you just have this amazing thing. So I love that solution, because I usually tell people, like, go find where your audience is and have a conversation with them. But that's like that's hard to do, especially for a more introverted person. It is the best way to get that information. But like you said, like those things are already there online and people are talking about them. So I love that solution. And when you talked about, getting into the emotion of it and the fact that people will often include these data points that really don't relate to a person. The first time I heard about something like that was with an organization called Charity Water. And Charity Water is a beautiful organization. They help bring water to people who do not have easy access to it. But I remember somebody telling a story about how they used to do their marketing, and they would really go into the data because the data was there and data is powerful. But then they started to go into like the individual stories. Here is a single child who wakes up every day thirsty. And then they started like focusing on that. And that's what people really connected with. And so when they do their fundraisers now and such, those are the kinds of messages that they focus on, because you are now understanding the person that you are affecting versus 1 million people go without water every day. It's like we can't even fathom what that actually means. So when telling a story, how do you best in copywriting tell that story when you're trying to make a sale eventually? Storytelling, I know, is very powerful, but storytelling with the purpose of conversion is something that I don't have a ton of experience with. What are some recommendations you have for pulling those stories out and presenting them in a way that ethically converts somebody?
So I think one thing is wanting to always keep the end in mind. It's like, why are you telling this story, right? And you're telling the story to ultimately get them to make a purchasing decision, or maybe say an opt-in decision, or some kind of to take an action. So remember the purpose of the story. That sounds simple, but you do see sometimes people start to meander and go on.
You forget.
Here. And it's like, right, keep it fairly succinct. The second really key element is what we mentioned before, and that you do naturally, is relating it back to the reader regularly. So I use the phrase or acronym WIIFM, WIIFM, M. So like, what's in it for me? And what's in it for me is not, me or you, but it's like the reader or the viewer, the person interacting with the content or copy. And this, by the way, goes for not just direct response copy, but even when you're creating content and stuff. Like, yeah, like telling stories about you and your life is very powerful, but you want to relate it back to the reader. So it can be as simple as little phrases like, maybe you can relate. Have you ever felt that way? Maybe you've experienced something similar before. Does that sound familiar? Well, that's how it was for me, right? So just stopping to check in periodically with like the reader and that conversational tone. And that's actually another important element, is being conversational. There's exceptions. Like if you're hardcore B2B, I get it. You're not going to write quite that way. I do actually think even there, sometimes B2B writing could be less dry. People just get so scared because it's B2B, but it's like you're still talking to human beings who have emotions and have their lives going on. But yeah, we're really just relating it back regularly. And then the story should be reflective. So you'll see that sometimes where somebody might have a really powerful emotional story where like in the, I've done a lot of stuff in the health space. So I'll use that as an example. Maybe somebody's selling some kind of shake, like a meal replacement shake. But then they have the story about how they got diagnosed with cancer, or their mom did. And they're like, start telling the story, which could be like, it could be relevant if you're like, I had cancer and I wasn't hungry and I started eating shakes and or using these shakes, and there's nothing I keep down. Thank God the cancer went to remission. In fact, after a couple of years, I was so healthy, I started to put on weight. I thought back to the shakes and how the shakes helped me. Like, it could be a story that is relevant there, but sometimes it's like they just sort of use this emotional story, but it's like that most people won't connect. Most people aren't going to buy a meal replacement shake because of cancer, right? As awful as it is and as amazing it is that this person overcame their cancer and went to remission, it's like that doesn't actually connect. So it needs to be a story that is kind of the vast majority of your market can see themselves in that story, versus a story that maybe is like, if your story is about you were an overseas operative doing all this crazy stuff, you're like a Navy SEAL commander and you're selling a self-defense thing, unless you can bring it back to like the local level of like, and then I thought I knew it all, but my dad got mugged and I realized people need to know, who aren't Navy SEALs, need to know how to defend themselves. Right. So then again, the story, but you bring it back to that local level. Because if it's just like, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm going to teach you all my Navy SEAL, Kung Fu, karate, hand-to-hand stuff. You're like, well, you're a Navy SEAL. I don't know if I can do that. Right. There's an immediate level of skepticism. So being really conscious of how the story relates to the prospect is very important too.
That's a really, really good point. I think a lot of the listeners know that they have some sort of expertise or experience to share, but we don't think about how that might be perceived. We have this like curse of knowledge. When we know something, it's hard to sort of understand what it's like not to know that. And I love that Navy SEAL example, because that is exactly how a lot of people approach it. And it's all about me, the Navy SEAL, and look what I do. Look at my credentials, now buy from me. Versus, I remember one of my favorite sales pages I bought when I was doing flag football with my friends. And I was looking online because you're looking at me right now. I'm not the size of like a football player, but I'm a kicker. I played soccer. So the punter is a very underrated portion of flag football, but very important. And so I wanted to be the best punter in the league. And so I looked online to try to find punting material, like how to punt a football. I landed on the sales page from an ex-professional NFL punter. And the whole page was all about what learning punting would do for me. Like how I could become this like star of the team, even though I'm just a punter, right? Hey, you're probably just this punter. You're probably skinny. You're not, and like they were talking to like people in college and me, like who was just on a rec league. And it's just like totally like I envisioned getting like fist bumps from my team because I had a good punt and they were able to win the game because of me, versus, hey, I'm this NFL punter. I kicked this many punts within the 10-yard line, like all this stuff that probably is true.
Right.
It wasn't even about this person at all. It was about what the course and a few videos would do for me. And I did buy that course and I did become a pretty good punter, and I still have a good kick today, which is really cool. So it worked. But I love that thought. And I think we could all go back to our sales pages, our emails, even our opt-in landing pages to just see how are we making this about them versus how are we making this about me. And it's very easy to talk about us. It's harder to relate that back to the person. So I appreciate that a lot. That's really, really valuable. I also like what you said about like making it conversational. I found that to help a lot on sales pages that I've attempted to write. Matt on my team does a much better job, but making it more conversational, even saying things like, what's up? Or, hey, yo, it's Pat here again. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because when we were in school, we were taught to write like the 5-paragraph essay that was so structured and formalized that we just don't think it's okay to write like that, especially when there's like dollar values tied to it. But it's all about relationships, right? It seems, and understanding who your prospect is.
Yeah. Let me just to add to that, because I think that's a mistake people make early on is they sort of get the 1950s, 1960s Mad Men voice in their head where they start to like, they think that they have to make it sound like an advertisement, so they're sort of like, indeed, you will be astounded as you, and it's like nobody actually talks that way, right? And so they're going to know it's an ad, but you don't have to like beat them over the head. Like, this is an ad. I'm selling something to you. This is an ad. It's like, if you're conversational, then they can become more comfortable with you. Now they can put their guard down a little bit and be more receptive to your messaging. So just like, that's a common rookie mistake that is a pet peeve of mine. And because honestly, even some good copywriters try to do it because but I thought about that because you talked about when there's money involved, people suddenly think because they're writing an ad now or writing copy that it needs to sound like some like an ad like they envision from a TV show or like some classic like magazine ad. But be conversational. You'll be way better. You'll do way better too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
How do you practice copywriting? What's a good way to just get better at it?
So the classic answer people give that I don't fully is to like handwrite copy, like find copy you like and
why
handwrite it.
Why is that the answer?
The answer is like because you're looking at it, and then when you physically write something with your hand, like on pen and paper, the synapses in your brain, the neuroplasticity.
Okay.
I think studying a lot of copy is valuable, and maybe even typing up like stuff like typing notes or typing up sections that you think is good. But I really think more important than that is looking for commonalities, kind of like going through and dissecting the copy, like seeing what they're doing in these different places, making notes, looking at several pieces, seeing where you keep seeing recurring themes or patterns, and then really just practicing. So if you want to write emails, pick a brand that you like, whether if you have your own company, great. Even if you don't, go pick a brand you like, look at some of their emails they send out that you're getting, and then try to write some on your own. Who cares if, if you're a freelancer, then you can, by the way, take those and send them to the company and be like, hey, I'm a freelancer. I really love your stuff. I wrote some emails for you. Check them out. So then suddenly you can use that as a prospecting tool. It's part of your portfolio, all that. But even if you're like a business owner, maybe you don't feel like it's hard to think about writing for your own product or service because you're so in it, like you're so wrapped up in all of it and you're in the day to day and immersed in it. But for some brand you really like, just have fun with it. Just pick one and try writing an email or a landing page or whatever. And really, a lot of it is just that practice and getting reps in, and that's a pretty big thing. Do
you think using platforms like social media, which has a little bit more forgiveness and it's a little bit more just kind of at that moment and then it's gone kind of thing, is that, say for example, I want to practice like, getting people interested in the story I have to tell? Like, would using something like Twitter or Instagram to tell that story be a good way to sort of gauge and practice? Yeah, that is. That's a good suggestion. I've been doing like a reel on my Instagram almost every day. And I have like a massive following. I've got maybe 85,000, 90,000 followers currently at the time of this recording. Plan on growing it a lot. But, the reels are great. I get like 3 to 10,000 views, and every now and then one pops off and gets like 45,000 views or whatever. But I'm thinking about copywriting principles because I usually come in with like, okay, I'm going to try to teach something, but then I'm like, how do I open? What's my opening line? Am I going to grab their attention? How do I relate it back to them? So I'm actually thinking, so even for me, like doing, and you have to keep it to under 90 seconds, right? Because that's the platform. So things like that are actually really great, I think, for practicing, because so many people will create that content, but they're not at all intentional about it. So if you sort of practice some of these copywriting concepts, if you're doing, video content, things of that nature, yeah, I think it's really powerful. Yeah, actually reels and shorts and TikToks would be really good to practice because you'd be able to tell really quickly if something is, hitting the mark or not. And actually, I'm thinking about a lot of the TikToks that I enjoy and, will watch, especially like the longer ones. Most of them either or both connect with me and my life in some way and are telling a story. I don't know why I haven't been consciously watching those with, copywriting in mind, but I probably should. Where can people go to just see what those reels are from you and like where can they follow you on Instagram? Yeah, so it's just at Stefan Georgi. So yeah, for STEFAN GEORGI. Sweet. We'll have links in the show notes and such. And you had mentioned offering something to the audience as far as like a list of questions and stuff they could ask their audience for research and things like that. Where might they be able to go get that? Cool. Yeah. So for that, I
I have a whole copywriting course called the RMBC method, and it's great. It's like the flagship copywriting course, but the research part is applicable to everybody, whether you want to be a copywriter, whether you just want to sell more, like honestly, written word from stage, presentations, whatever. This research module is extremely powerful. It's the first part, R and RMBC. So I just basically took that module and I'm going to give it to your listeners for free. They just go to SPG, my initials, .fun, FUN/research. And it's got a little opt-in page. You know, you put your email address in and you'll get this module from my $1,000 course. And it's meaty. It's not like so much meat that you're not going to go through it, but it's like not a crappy little PDF. So I'm pretty proud of it. So people can, if you're interested, feel free to go check that out.
Yeah, thanks for setting this up for us. So spg.fun, which is a cool domain name, /research.
Correct.
We'll give you access to that. Awesome. You still have a few more minutes to chat a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
I love this conversation. So I'm thinking about the entrepreneur who they have a product for sale, a course, for example, or maybe a coaching program, or maybe they're even an agency of sorts, and they have minimal success, right? We want to help them scale and grow. They have a sales page already. What is the best way to go into material that you already have and then improve it? Because I know sometimes people go, this is crap, I'm going to overhaul the whole thing. Some people want to pick just little parts and split tests and things like that. What is your approach for taking somebody who has something going on that's not going the way they wanted to and improving it?
A lot of the time, from a pure copy standpoint, it's usually focusing on the opening, so like the headline and the lead, because the most eyeballs are going to be on that part. If we look at it, if there's a sales funnel, but even your copy is a funnel. So look at, for people who aren't watching the video, like an inverted triangle, right? So it's wider at the top. And when someone clicks on an ad, goes to that landing page, the most eyeballs are going to be at the very top. And then as they keep going, more and more eyeballs are dropping off. The triangle is becoming more and more narrow. So focusing on your messaging there is always the biggest needle mover from a pure copy perspective. The other really big one, and there's many, but another really big one is just clarity of your offer. That's very common. So my friend I mentioned at the beginning, who has the business helping bookkeepers and accountants to, grow their freelancing sort of side hustles, whatever. The offer, it was like a low ticket. So I think it was like $5, let's say. Essentially what it was it's these 7 magic posts that anybody can take, any financial professional can take, put onto social media and use it to start getting high quality clients. And so then if you go into it, there's sort of these different types of posts and there's like some training behind it, but really it's like, hey, copy and paste my 7 magic posts and make little tweaks. And then, you can start getting more clients for your business. I know I use them. I'm now running a $1 million plus accounting business, whatever. So that's what it was. The page was like, discover my secret method that can help you to get more clients and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like all of these bullet points that were like how to position yourself as an authority in your market, how to authentically connect with prospective customers, how to this and this. And it was like, hey.
It sounds so like things I come across all the time. Yeah.
It's like vague, right? It's like, well, discover this secret. The copy wasn't bad. It was like the person was clearly a good writer, but it just wasn't a very clear value proposition. So on one hand, you have this where it's like, I don't really know what I'm getting. On the other hand, what I did with her is get my 7 magic posts for social media that can help you bring 3 to 5 high quality clients, even if you're pressed for time, an introvert, and hate putting yourself out there on social media. So going back to the market's objections, right? And then the original had 20 bullets. We had 4 bullets. So it was get the post. The post will help you. Click here. And so literally went from, converting at 1 point, whatever, 3% to now right now she's over 10%, which is a massive increase, right? But then nothing else changed in the funnel. It was just being clear on the value. So I bring that up because I think for a lot of people, they might have a great product, but they're trying to do too much sometimes. You're actually trying to say too much. You're trying to, sometimes it's the curse of bells and whistles, which I just made up, but I love it. I'm going to use it again in future podcasts.
I like that. You should use that.
I'm totally going to just right? Because there's so many bells and whistles maybe for your cool product or service that you need to I got to tell them about all of it, right? And it's you don't really, you want to look at what's the core thing that your product or service does that can help them, and how can you explain that to them in the simplest way possible. So that's a really, really powerful one.
Curse of bells and whistles, bro. That is fantastic. That is so true, though.
And I'm going to write it down. I've got my remarkable, yeah.
We often say feature creep is what we call that often, especially in like the software space. But Curse of Bells and Whistles, that's like a book that's about to be written, or at least a lead magnet. That's great. Yeah, Stefan, I mean, we could talk for hours about all these things, but I think people have, to the point of let's just give them what they need and then go with it. Like, I think we have plenty of stuff here for the audience to listen to take action on. And I'm sure there are going to be a few people in the audience who are like, I don't have the time and I want to figure out like, how might I find somebody to do this? If you might be available, or where can people go to potentially get access to your work as an expert in this space?
Absolutely. So for those who go to the spg.fund/research, you'll get onto my email list as part of the deal for, getting the module. You can literally reply those emails. I read every reply to my emails. So if you do that, you just reply and say, hey, Stefan, what's up? I can help. Right? I'm generally not personally for hire anymore. I'll do random like kind of passion projects. Like I just wrote a full page ad for USA Today for a friend who's got like a big launch going on. So like random things like that. But I've got a mastermind full of incredible copywriters. So I can match you to a copywriter that fits your budget and your need and help you figure out what that is if you email me. Or I've got, some other options where we do sometimes funnel economics and copywriting stuff for percentages of revenue or equity deals. DM me on Instagram too. I look at all my DMs. So at this point, I'm pretty accessible. I can't know, who knows in a couple of years, but yeah.
Right. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. One more time, spg.fund/research to go get that from Stefan right now. Thank you for your time and thanks for helping us out today.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone who listened. Hopefully you got some value from it.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Stefan. You can again find him and his free resource at spg.fund/research. And if you want to get the links to his social media and some other resources that we talked about today, smartpassiveincome.com/session623. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/session623. Stefan, thank you so much. This was incredibly valuable and helpful, especially even for me as somebody who is always creating new things and wants to best represent what those things can do for people and do it in a legit manner. And I like that we talked about doing this for authentic reasons. I think that's sort of obvious here, but we need to continue to mention that because this is very powerful stuff. If you nail copywriting, that is a power that does come with a lot of responsibility, right? So I hope that the tips that Stefan offered today and some of the research stuff that he's going to give you at that free gift is going to help you in the future. And thank you again, Stefan, for coming on. Thank you for listening all the way through. I appreciate you. Now, one of my favorite ways to practice copywriting is to actually share my sales pages, share my emails with other people like my mastermind group to see what their reaction is, to gauge a little bit of a response. If you are looking for access to different people where you can share things like that, I highly recommend you check out SPI Pro or our SPI learner communities. These are communities of people just like you that you can come in and share resources with and get some valuable feedback from. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com/community, you'll see the different options that we have available for you to join our community and join forces with other people just like you. smartpassiveincome.com/community. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I look forward to serving you in the next episode coming up very shortly here. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on it. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Our senior producer is Sarah Jane Hess. Our series producer is David Grabowski. And our executive producer is Matt Gartland. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media. We'll catch you in the next session. Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Look, I get it. You want to grow your business, but trying to sell to hundreds or even thousands of people gets very exhausting very fast. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? Score App helps you sell to more people without adding more to your plate. You build a quiz or assessment that your audience actually wants to take. Then they answer a few quick questions and get a personalized result right away. It shows them where they're at and what they need to do next and how you can help. And you build huge amounts of trust before you make even a single offer. No hard sell, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. All you have to do is just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.